If you're in the market for a TV in 2021, chances are you are looking at LG's OLEDs. This has been one of the go-to TVs for the last couple of years and one of the most recommended. In today's video, we're going to take a look at if anything is really changing in the C1 compared to the C10, as well as looking at some of the budget options from the A1 OLED. This is something new that LG is introducing this year, and we'll talk about how much of a difference it is compared to the B series that they had before. I'll also be discussing release dates for some of these TVs, as well as pricing points. In this video, we'll also discuss a little bit about the G1, the Gallery series, and we're going to see if that price increase is really going to be worth it for you at the end of the day, and we'll let you make that decision after hearing the details. Once again, this is going to be a podcast style production, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. The goal of this video was to kind of take a look at what is out there for 2021 and kind of compare it to what you get with the 2020 models. One thing you really need to keep in mind this year is the 2020 models are going to be a lot more affordable than the 2021 models, and really, if anything changed with the C1 and the C10, it better be very significant for you to want to pick the C1 over the C10 at a lower price point. It's pretty simple. When we look at the C1 and the C10 side by side, and we kind of break down the specs, you're not seeing anything that really jumps out at you right away. So in terms of brightness, in terms of the specs, in terms of how many ports it has, and what the ports are capable of, I really doubt that you'll see a huge significant increase from year to year. In fact, if you take a look at year to year with these OLEDs, you're not seeing a huge increase in brightness. That hasn't changed, and I don't expect it to change with the C1 from the C10. For that brightness increase, you're really just looking at the LG G1 series, which is the Gallery series that features the LG Evo panel. And this is going to be the only way that you can get a brightness increase with an LG OLED this year. So when you take a look at the LG A1, B1, C1, I think we're looking at a very similar situation here and a very similar brightness. Once again, they will all probably be using the same OLED panel, with the only differences being the chip itself that is in the TV. I want to note though that if you are a gamer, then looking at the C1 is definitely not a bad option because they do have the game optimizer. Whether or not that's going to be a huge game changer in comparison to the C10 remains to be seen, but it seems kind of promising what they are showing off. We really don't know what to expect from the game optimizer yet. There's been speculation that it could be something very similar to Game Motion Plus, though I didn't really hear this hinted at in CES, so we'll be curious to see what happens with the game optimizer. They have a genre selection which is going to change the picture quality of the game based on the genre that you have, though I don't know how that'll affect the actual game's performance or the actual motion quality in the game, so it remains to be seen. We do know that this is a way to turn off FreeSync and G-Sync with the click of a button, but beyond that, there's not much known, especially about the genre selection. So unless you're really wanting this game optimizer feature, you might want to save some money and look towards the C10. Now, on the topic of saving some money, if you do want to save some money but you still just want that OLED technology, the self-emitting pixel, then look towards the A1 OLED from LG this year. It's going to be a TV that they are going to market towards the value prospects, and this is going to be something, if you want a budget TV but you still want a really nice picture quality, then the A1 is probably going to be what you want to look at. Now you have to keep in mind that this is a 60 Hz TV, so anything 120 Hz capable, you're not going to be able to do it because it just doesn't support 120 Hz. This matters for gamers if you are looking to go to 120 Hz, and HDMI 2.1 is out of the picture with that in mind. However, at CES, they did say they will have HDMI 2.1 features like ALLM and VRR, so you still have that going for you. So yeah, if you don't care about 120 Hz gaming, and you're really just watching movies and playing a little bit of games here and there, the A1 might not be a bad option for most people. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not the A1 is going to be significantly dimmer than the C1, though I don't really expect a huge brightness decrease. Even with the LG OLEDs, yes, it was a little bit dimmer, but the brightness level difference wasn't huge across the board. And in the terms of buying an OLED, you're not really looking for a bright TV in the first place. So if you are in the market for a TV, you have a dark room, and you don't need 120 hertz gaming, the LG A1 might be the perfect TV solution. So let's talk about release date. When are these TVs coming out? Well, what we know right now is that we don't have a release date for the A1, but the C1 and the G1, they will be arriving in April. So if you are in the market for a G1, that is when you can expect to see it. And if you're in the market for a C1, I definitely would do some research about what the C1 offers over the C10 and kind of think about that for a little bit, because I do believe you will see the C10 for some really good deals coming up here soon as we start to see the TVs release. A lot of stores are going to want to clear them out, so keep an eye out on those price tags. Speaking of price tags, let's take a look at some of the prices that LG Europe has released, and this is for all of them except for the A1 series. Alright, so instead of breaking down each price one by one, I'll just display it on screen here, and we'll kind of talk about the differences between the C1 and the G1's pricing based on the Euro pricing. Now, keep in mind, these are Euro pricing, and we don't know the official US pricing yet from LG. And typically, we'll see the Euro prices be a little bit higher than the US prices, especially when we're talking about MSRP. So expect these prices to not really translate if you go to Google and try to translate the Euro to USD. It's just really not going to make sense in terms of what the price will actually be when it drops. So taking a look at the C1 to the G1, we can see that the 55 inch is 2,000 euro, but the G1 is 2,400 euro. So that's really just 400 euro to get a better TV, the G1. So if you're in the 55 inch market, it might be worth it to look towards getting a G1 over the C1. Now, going from 65 inch, we can see that there's a 700 euro increase in the 65 inch, because we have 2,800 for the 65 inch and then 3,500 for the 65 inch G1. So yes, it does look like when you upgrade, you are going to pay more from the C1 to the G1, the bigger the size. The 77 inch is 5,300 euro for the C1, and then the 77 inch is 65 euro for the G1. That's a significant 1,200 euro increase for your upgrade. So definitely you're going to have to pay for that upgrade. And it really does make sense to look towards that upgrade if you are in the 55 inch market. I think that if you're in the 65 inch market, you really have to determine how much brightness is going to matter to you. And if you're in the 77 inch market, I'm guessing that paying a little bit more won't bother you anyway, since a 77 inch OLED is pretty pricey already. So you might think about just getting the best of the best, though this is just going to really depend on your situation, what matters to you, and how much brightness really matters to you. Brightness really has two factors to it. The better the brightness, the better the HDR, without tone mapping. With better brightness, you'll be able to see better highlight details when you have brighter scenes. Things will just be clearer and more detailed than they would be if you were watching it on a darker screen. For example, if you take something like an LG OLED C10 and then you have a Q90T from Samsung, the difference is going to be huge on those bright highlight details. You'll see a huge difference. Really, overall, you'll just get better HDR the brighter the picture. And we really don't know if the G1 is going to have some more advanced ABL features, where if that is the case, then I actually think that paying more for that TV will be better because ABL does hinder HDR a lot. If you ask my opinion on the situation, I do think that ABL is probably one of the worst things about an OLED. So, if the G1 does have better ABL features where it doesn't have to kick in as much, or they found a way to completely eliminate it from happening, then the G1 is going to be fantastic. Though there's not a lot of information known about that yet, we still need to test out these TVs ourselves and see a couple of real reviews out there. And so the other thing where brightness would matter would be your room condition. Now, if you're in a brighter room, you're definitely going to want to look towards an LCD TV most of the time, but depending on how bright your room actually is, you could get away with an OLED. That said, the brighter the better, especially if your room is going to be bright. Now, if you're in a dark room, brightness might not matter that much, and you would probably be fine with getting a C series. If you can get your room completely dark, the difference is going to just be in the HDR and the highlight detail. And yes, it'll be better, but how much better will it be to you? And will you notice it on most scenes? The chances are you won't really notice a huge difference unless you look closely at some of the highlight details. Alright, well, that wraps up this video. I hope it was informative for you and helped you make a decision whether or not you should go for a newer OLED or go and look at the older OLEDs. Also, maybe it made you think about buying the G1, or maybe it helped you make the decision that you don't need a G1. Really, the decision is going to be up to you at the end of the day. I just hope I can make your decision process a little bit easier by digesting some more information. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. If you want to continue watching videos, make sure you check out the links to the side here, and I'll see you guys in the next one.